Most apex predators want nothing to do with us. They've learned over thousands of years that humans are dangerous, unpredictable, and not worth the risk. But there are a few predators that haven't gotten this message. Animals that will actively stalk, pursue, and hunt humans as a food source. Some of them do it out of desperation when their natural prey has disappeared. Others do it because we happen to share their habitat, and they simply view us as another meal. In today's video, we'll be looking at 6 apex predators that are known to hunt humans. And to find our first predator, we'll be heading to the forests of Africa and the Indian subcontinent. The leopard is the most adaptable of all the big cats, and it's found across a wider range of habitats than any other large feline. From the rainforests of Central Africa to the Himalayan foothills of Nepal, leopards have learned to thrive in almost every environment they encounter. They are solitary, nocturnal, and incredibly stealthy, and these traits have also made them the most dangerous big cat to humans in certain parts of the world. While lions and tigers tend to make headlines when they attack people, leopards have quietly accumulated one of the highest body counts of any land predator, and they have produced some of the most prolific man-eaters in recorded history. What makes leopards particularly dangerous is their comfort around human settlements. Unlike lions, which generally avoid villages, and tigers, which stick to dense forest, leopards will walk straight into towns and cities under the cover of darkness. In India, leopard attacks in urban and semi-urban areas have been increasing in recent years as human development pushes further into their habitat. There have been cases where leopards have entered houses through open windows and doors and attacked people while they slept. In one horrifying incident, a leopard entered a school in the Indian city of Bangalore in 2016, causing panic as it was chased through corridors and classrooms before being tranquilized. Their ability to operate in close proximity to humans without being detected is what makes them so effective and so terrifying as man-eaters. The most infamous man-eating leopard in history was the leopard of Panar, which is believed to have killed over 400 people in the Panar region of northern India in the early 1900s. This would make it the second deadliest individual man-eater ever recorded, behind only a single tiger that we'll get to later. The legendary hunter Jim Corbett, who dedicated much of his life to tracking and killing man-eating big cats in India, described man-eating leopards as being far more difficult and dangerous to hunt than man-eating tigers. This was because leopards are smaller and harder to spot. They hunt almost exclusively at night, and they are masterful at using cover to get close to their targets. Corbett himself killed several man-eating leopards during his career, and he noted that in almost every case, the animal had become a man-eater after suffering an injury that made it unable to hunt its normal prey. A leopard with a broken jaw, a porcupine quill lodged in its paw, or a gunshot wound would turn to the easiest available food source, and in the densely populated villages of rural India, that food source was humans. Even today, leopard attacks continue across India, with dozens of people being killed each year. The leopard takes the 6th place spot. And for our next section, we'll be heading to the frozen north, as we'll be focusing on the only bear species that actively views humans as prey. The polar bear is the largest land predator on the planet, with the biggest males capable of reaching weights of over 700 kilograms and standing nearly 3 meters tall on their hind legs. They are perfectly adapted to life in the Arctic, with thick blubber, dense fur, and enormous paws that act as snowshoes on the ice. In their frozen world, they sit at the absolute top of the food chain, and their primary prey is the ringed seal, which they hunt by waiting patiently at breathing holes in the sea ice, sometimes for hours, before striking with explosive speed. But when seals are scarce, polar bears will eat almost anything they can find, and unfortunately, that includes humans. What sets the polar bear apart from every other bear species is that it is the only one that will actively stalk and hunt humans as a food source. Grizzly bears and black bears will attack people, but these attacks are almost always defensive, triggered by surprise encounters, protection of cubs, or defense of a food source. Polar bears are different. When a polar bear approaches a human settlement or a campsite, it is often doing so because it is hungry and it views the people inside as potential prey. This predatory behavior has been documented repeatedly across the Arctic, and it makes encounters with polar bears fundamentally more dangerous than encounters with any other bear species. If a grizzly bear charges you, playing dead can sometimes convince it that you are no longer a threat and cause it to leave. If a polar bear is stalking you, playing dead will simply make its job easier. Thankfully, fatal polar bear attacks are rare, and this is mostly because very few people live in the remote Arctic regions where these bears are found. But when attacks do occur, they are often fatal, and the predatory nature of the attacks makes them particularly horrifying. In 2011, a polar bear attacked a group of young people on a camping expedition in Svalbard, Norway, killing one person and injuring 4 others before being shot. The bear had been stalking the campsite for some time before the attack, and its behavior was consistent with a predatory approach rather than a defensive one. In the Canadian territory of Nunavut, where indigenous communities have lived alongside polar bears for thousands of years, there is a deep cultural understanding of the danger these animals pose. Locals know never to leave food outside, never to approach a polar bear, and never to assume that a bear walking toward you is just curious. Climate change is making the situation worse. As Arctic sea ice continues to decline, polar bears are spending more time on land, where they have less access to their preferred seal prey. Hungry bears are increasingly wandering into human settlements in search of food, and the number of human-bear encounters has been rising in recent decades. In the Russian town of Belushya Guba on the Novaya Zemlya archipelago, dozens of polar bears invaded the town in 2019, rummaging through garbage, entering apartment buildings, and terrifying residents. None of the encounters turned fatal, but the incident illustrated a growing trend that is likely to continue as the climate warms. The polar bear takes the 5th place spot. And for our next section, we'll be heading to the tropics of Southeast Asia and Northern Australia. The saltwater crocodile is the largest living reptile on the planet, capable of exceeding 6 meters in length and weighing over a metric ton, and it is one of the few animals in the world that will actively and deliberately hunt humans whenever the opportunity presents itself. Unlike some other predators on this list that only turn to hunting humans under specific circumstances, the saltwater crocodile doesn't need a reason. To a large saltwater croc, a human wading in a river or walking along a riverbank is simply another animal of an appropriate size to eat. There is no desperation involved, no injury that has forced it to switch prey. Humans are just food. They are found across a vast range from eastern India through Southeast Asia, northern Australia, and into the western Pacific Islands, and across this range, they claim hundreds of lives each year. The exact number is difficult to determine because many attacks occur in remote areas where incidents go unreported. But estimates suggest that saltwater crocodiles kill between 300 and 1,000 people annually. On Bangka Island in Indonesia, tin mining has destroyed much of the crocodile's natural habitat, pushing them into mine lakes where they ambush local workers. Since 2016, around 40 people have lost their lives to crocodile attacks on this one island alone. In the Solomon Islands, East Timor, and Papua New Guinea, attacks are a regular occurrence, and in some communities, people live in constant fear of the water. In Australia, fatal attacks are rarer thanks to aggressive public education campaigns, warning signs, and strict regulations about swimming in crocodile habitat. But they still happen. One of the most infamous incidents occurred in 1985, when a model named Ginger Meadows was killed by a saltwater crocodile while wading in shallow water at a beach in northern Queensland. Despite warnings from locals, she entered the water and was taken almost immediately. The attack highlighted just how fast and efficient these predators are, and it reinforced the message that in northern Australia, no body of water is ever truly safe. What makes saltwater crocodiles so effective as human hunters is their ambush strategy. They lie motionless at the water's edge, invisible beneath the surface with only their eyes and nostrils exposed, and they wait for prey to come within striking distance. They can remain in this position for hours without moving, and their dark, rough skin makes them virtually indistinguishable from a submerged log or a patch of mud. The attack, when it comes, is explosive and almost impossible to survive. They lunge forward with a burst of speed that seems impossible for an animal of their size, grab their victim in jaws that can exert several tons of bite force, and drag them into the water in a fraction of a second. Once you're in the water with a large saltwater crocodile, the outcome is almost always fatal, as their death roll and sheer strength make escape virtually impossible. They are also incredibly patient predators. There have been documented cases of saltwater crocodiles learning the routines of people who regularly visit the same spot on a riverbank, and then positioning themselves at that exact spot and waiting. This level of predatory intelligence makes them one of the most dangerous animals a human can encounter, and it's the reason why the rules in northern Australia are so clear. If you see a body of water and there are no signs saying it's safe, assume there is a crocodile in it. The saltwater crocodile takes the 4th place spot. And for our next section, we'll be heading over to the savannas and riverbanks of sub-Saharan Africa. The lion is the only big cat that lives in large social groups, and this social structure has made it one of the most effective predators on the African continent. It has also made it one of the most dangerous animals to humans throughout history, because a pride of lions that has learned to hunt people can devastate an entire region. Lions are generally wary of humans today, and in most parts of Africa, they avoid villages and settlements. But throughout history, and in some places even today, certain individuals and prides have developed a taste for human flesh, and the resulting man-eating episodes have become some of the most famous predator stories ever told. The most iconic man-eating lion story is that of the Tsavo man-eaters, 2 manless male lions that terrorized a railway construction project in Kenya in 1898. Over a period of approximately 9 months, these 2 lions killed and consumed an estimated 35 workers, though some accounts put the number significantly higher. The attacks brought construction on the Kenya-Uganda Railway to a complete standstill, as terrified workers refused to continue until the lions were dealt with. The lions seemed to target the workers' camps with calculated precision, dragging men from their tents at night and carrying them off into the darkness. Despite elaborate defensive measures, including thorn fences and bonfires, the lions continued their attacks with an intelligence and persistence that baffled everyone involved. The project's chief engineer, Colonel John Henry Patterson, eventually shot both lions after months of failed attempts, and their stuffed bodies are still on display at the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago. But the Tsavo lions were far from the only man-eating lions in history. In Tanzania, lion attacks on humans remain a serious problem, with an estimated 200 to 300 people being killed by lions across the country between 1990 and 2005. One particularly notorious individual, known as the man-eater of Mimfuwe, killed 6 people in Zambia in 1991 before being shot by a California safari guide. What made this lion particularly unsettling was its behavior after one of the kills. It was witnessed walking through the village carrying a laundry bag full of clothes that belonged to one of its victims, as if it were parading a trophy through the streets. This eerie detail has made the Mfuwe man-eater one of the most talked-about individual predators in modern African history, and the lion is now on display at the Field Museum in Chicago alongside the Tsavo man-eaters. In the Njombe region of Tanzania, a pride of lions killed an estimated 1,500 people between 1932 and 1947, making it the worst man-eating episode involving lions ever recorded. Though some historians have questioned the accuracy of this figure and suggest the real number may have been inflated by colonial-era reporting. Even if the true number was significantly lower, it would still represent one of the most devastating predator attacks in human history. What often triggers man-eating behavior in lions is similar to what triggers it in leopards: an injury or condition that prevents the lion from hunting its normal prey. Broken teeth, porcupine quills, and diseases that reduce their strength can all push lions toward easier prey, and in rural Africa, humans are among the easiest targets available. The lion takes the 3rd place spot. And for our next section, we'll be staying in Africa, but we'll be heading to the rivers and lakes. The Nile crocodile is the 2nd largest living reptile after the saltwater crocodile, and across sub-Saharan Africa, it is the animal that claims the most human lives. These massive predators can reach lengths of over 6 meters and weights of over a metric ton, and they inhabit virtually every major river system, lake, and wetland across the continent. In many parts of rural Africa, People have no choice but to use rivers and lakes for drinking water, bathing, washing clothes, and fishing, and this puts them in direct contact with Nile crocodiles on a daily basis. The result is an estimated 300 to 500 human fatalities per year, though the true number is almost certainly higher, as many attacks in remote areas go unreported and unrecorded. It's impossible to talk about the Nile crocodile without mentioning Gustave, a massive individual that became one of the most notorious man-eating animals in modern history. Gustave was first identified by a French herpetologist named Patrice Fay in the late 1990s in the Ruzizi River and Lake Tanganyika in Burundi. He was rumored to have killed up to 300 people, though a more realistic estimate puts the number at around 60. Even at 60 confirmed kills, this would make him one of the deadliest individual predators of any species in recorded history. Gustave was estimated to be over 6 meters long and was covered in scars, including bullet marks and a dark patch on his head that may have been a wound from a failed military attempt to kill him. Multiple capture and kill missions were launched against Gustave, but he evaded every single one, disappearing into the depths of Lake Tanganyika each time. Whether Gustave is still alive today is unknown, but his legacy as Africa's most feared crocodile endures. What makes Nile crocodiles so effective at hunting humans is the same ambush strategy used by their saltwater cousins. They lurk beneath the surface near areas where people regularly access the water, and they strike with a speed and power that gives their victims virtually no chance of escape. Once a person has been grabbed, the crocodile will drag them underwater and perform a death roll, spinning its entire body to disorient the victim and prevent them from fighting back. Even people who manage to fight off the initial grab, which is extremely rare, are often dragged back under before they can reach the shore. In some communities along African rivers, the fear of crocodile attacks is so pervasive that it shapes every aspect of daily life. People develop elaborate systems for accessing water safely, with some communities posting lookouts while others collect water, and children are taught from a very young age never to approach the water's edge alone. Women who wash clothes and collect water from rivers are among the most frequent victims, as are fishermen who wade into shallow water to set and check their nets. In some regions, crocodile attacks are so common that they barely make the local news, and families that have lost members to these reptiles often view it as an unavoidable fact of life rather than a newsworthy event. One of the most recent attacks to make international headlines occurred in South Africa, when a man ignored warning signs and began fishing in a known crocodile area. These kinds of incidents highlight a pattern that is consistent across the continent. The people who are most at risk are those who have no choice but to enter crocodile-infested water to survive, and those who underestimate the danger despite clear warnings. Despite these attacks, Nile crocodiles are actually a vital part of African freshwater ecosystems, and efforts to manage human-crocodile conflict have become an important part of conservation work across the continent. But for the millions of Africans who depend on rivers and lakes for their survival, these animals remain a constant and inescapable threat. The Nile crocodile takes the second-place spot. And for our final section, we'll be heading to the Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia to face the deadliest big cat man-eater in history. The tiger is the largest of all the big cats, with some males reaching weights of over 300 kilograms, and it has been responsible for more human deaths than any other wild cat species in recorded history. It's estimated that tigers killed approximately 373,000 people in India alone between 1800 and 2009, a number that is almost impossible to comprehend. During the British colonial era in India, tiger attacks on humans were so common that the British administration employed professional hunters to track and kill man-eating individuals, and some of these hunters became legendary figures in their own right. Jim Corbett, who we mentioned earlier in this video, was called upon repeatedly by desperate villagers to deal with man-eating tigers that were terrorizing their communities, and his accounts of tracking these animals through dense forest read like some of the most gripping adventure stories ever written. The most prolific individual man-eater in history was the Champawat tiger, a female Bengal tiger that killed an estimated 436 people across Nepal and the Kumaon region of northern India in the late 1800s and early 1900s. When Corbett finally shot her in 1907, he discovered that both of her upper canine teeth had been broken, likely by a previous gunshot wound. This injury had made it impossible for her to hunt her normal prey of deer and wild boar, and she had turned to the only animal that was slow enough and accessible enough for her to catch: humans. The story of the Champawat tiger is both horrifying and tragic, because the tiger that killed 436 people had been created by a human who had shot and wounded her years earlier. Today, tiger attacks on humans still occur, though the numbers are far lower than they were historically, mostly because there are far fewer tigers. There are only an estimated 4,500 wild tigers remaining across their range, which is a fraction of the population that once roamed across Asia. But in certain areas, attacks remain a serious and ongoing problem. The Sundarbans, a vast mangrove forest that straddles the border between India and Bangladesh, is the most dangerous place in the world for tiger attacks. Around a third of all tiger attacks on humans occur in this region, and the tigers here have developed a reputation for being particularly aggressive and bold. Local fishermen and honey collectors who enter the mangroves to earn a living are the most vulnerable, and despite various deterrent measures, attacks continue to claim dozens of lives each year. One of the deterrents that has been tried is wearing face masks on the back of the head, based on the theory that tigers prefer to ambush from behind and won't attack if they think they're being watched. This worked for a short time, but the tigers eventually seemed to figure out the trick and began attacking regardless. Electrified human dummies have also been placed in the forest, which deliver a painful shock when a tiger bites or claws them, and these have shown some success in conditioning individual tigers to associate humans with an unpleasant experience. But in a vast mangrove forest that stretches for over 10,000 square kilometers, these measures can only do so much. The tigers of the Sundarbans are unusual because they appear to hunt humans not just as a last resort, but as part of their regular diet. The reasons for this are debated, but some researchers believe that the brackish water of the mangroves makes the tigers more aggressive, while others suggest that the sheer density of human activity in the area has simply taught the tigers that humans are a reliable food source. Across the rest of India, tiger attacks tend to follow a different pattern. Most man-eating incidents involve tigers that are old, injured, or have been displaced from their territory by younger rivals. These animals are unable to hunt their normal prey effectively, and they turn to humans out of desperation rather than preference. The Indian government and wildlife organizations have developed protocols for dealing with man-eating tigers, which usually involve attempting to capture the animal first and only resorting to shooting it if capture fails. But these decisions are always controversial, as each tiger represents a significant fraction of the wild population, and killing a man-eater can feel like choosing between human lives and the survival of a critically endangered species. In 2018, the hunting and killing of a man-eating tigress known as Avni in Maharashtra sparked a national debate in India about how man-eating tigers should be handled, with animal rights activists condemning the decision and local communities arguing that it was necessary to protect their lives. It's a moral dilemma that has no easy answer, and it's one that will become more common as human populations continue to expand into tiger habitat. The tiger's long and devastating history of hunting humans, combined with the ongoing attacks in the Sundarbans and across its range, means that it easily takes the first-place spot. No other big cat, and arguably no other land predator, has claimed as many human lives throughout history. And the fact that they continue to do so today, despite their dwindling numbers, is a testament to just how formidable these animals truly are. Of course, there are a few other predators that could have made this list, and I'm sure some of you will have different opinions on the rankings. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, then feel free to let me know down below. But for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.